So, geography is a study of where things are found on the Earth's surface and the reasons for the locations. And human geography asks two simple questions: where are people and activities found on Earth, and why are they found there? Mapping. A map is a two-dimensional or flat-scale model of the Earth's surface or a portion of it. Maps serve two purposes: one as a reference tool to identify an object's absolute relative location, and two as a communications tool to convey the distribution of human activities or physical features. The first world map was prepared by Eratosthenes between 276 and 194 BC. Improvements to the world map were later made by Ptolemy. After Ptolemy, advancements in cartography were primarily made outside of Europe by Chinese and Islamic world, and map making was later revived during the age of exploration and discovery. So Hurricane Katrina showed off the differences of distribution of population based on economical and social backgrounds. The minorities in the lower-income families suffered the most damage because they were located lower in sea level, while the wealthier non-minority population was higher and had less damage. Map scale. Level of detail and the amount of area covered on the map depends on its map scale, basically the relationship of a feature's size on a map to its actual size on Earth. Map scale is presented in three different ways. The first one is the ratio or fraction scale. The number on the left is 1 unit of distance, while the number on the right represents same unit of distance on Earth's surface. Number 2, written scale. The number on the left is 1 unit of distance, while the number on the right represents a different unit of distance on Earth's surface. And lastly, graphic scale. It usually consists of a bar line marked to show distance on the Earth's surface. The distance between 2 points can be overlaid on the scale bar to determine the distance on the Earth's surface. Projection. Scientific method of transferring locations on Earth's surface to a flat map is called projection. Did you know that the Earth's spherical shape causes distortion when drawing on a flat piece of paper? Well, if you don't, I'll tell you the 4 different types. The 4 types of distortion that occur on various map projections are shape, distance, relative size, and direction. There are also 3 different types of projection. The Mercator projection is a very widely used method of projecting the Earth's surface. It maintains the shape of each landmass accurately. The direction is consistent and it is rectangular. However, it distorts the size of landmasses near the poles, leaving them to look enlarged. The good homolozoid projection is not very widely used, but it has many advantages also. It doesn't distort the size or shape of the landmasses, but its irregular shape and inconsistent direction leaves it not as desired. And lastly, the Robinson projection. It's the second most used projection because it has correct shapes and information across the oceans is least distorted, but this leaves the landmasses looking smaller than they actually are.
To find specific locations on a map. They are arcs that are drawn on a map and are composed of meridians and parallels. These are arcs drawn from the north to the south pole. A system called longitude is used to measure each meridian, and it goes from 0 to 180 degrees east to west. The prime meridian passes through the Royal Observatory and is the only meridian located on 180 degrees longitude. Those are circles drawn around the globe that are parallel to the equator. A system known as latitude is used to measure each parallel. Every parallel is a 90-degree angle to each one of the meridians. The measurement of longitude and latitude is a great example of natural science and the study of human behavior and geography. Latitude is based on the Earth's shape and position with the sun. The equator is located 0 degrees latitude and is the only part of the Earth that receives 12 hours of sunlight daily. In 1714, British Parliament made the Longitude Act because explorers were struggling to tell time during their voyages. Longitude was discovered by observing the position of the sun. The equator is placed 0 degrees latitude and it receives consistent 12 hours of sunlight. Longitude can be measured by the length of the daylight in an area. Geographers have used longitude to tell time for many ages. Earth has been divided into 360 degrees, and each 15 degrees of longitude is a different time zone. In all, the Earth is divided into 24 time zones. In other words, one time zone for each hour of the day. GMT, or Greenwich Mean Time, is a standard time used across the globe. This area this time zone is on is the prime meridian. The international date line follows 180 degrees longitude. When someone crosses this line, it either means the clock goes back a full day or it goes forward a full day. Going east across this line will make the clock go back, and going west will make the clock move forward. Geographers use many tools to study the Earth's surface. Geographers have already mapped the Earth accurately, so GIS, or Geographic Information Science, is used to study the changes in the features of places. These changes are monitored by the satellites in the sky. Remote sensing is a method used by geographers to gather info about the Earth by using satellites. They can gather information such as changes in agriculture distribution, climate, and the growth of urban areas. GPS is used globally to track and monitor positions on the Earth's surface. GPS has 3 major elements. There are satellites in orbit, there are tracking stations to monitor and control the satellites, and receivers that utilize the satellites to pin locations. GIS is a computer system that captures, stores, analyzes, and shows geographic data. GIS combines layers of information about the Earth's surface and combines them to create an accurate representation. This is helpful to map relationships between objects, such as how low-income areas are affected more by natural disasters. GIS uses a computer software known as API to overlay locations like businesses, roads, and activities near streets to build a map of an area. This is the method Google uses to accurately represent specific locations and help find ways to navigate to those specific destinations.
Key issue 2. Why is each point on Earth unique? Every place on Earth has a toponym. This toponym can be based on many things. Those things include people, religion, or physical features. Site. Site is based on the physical character of the place and its characteristics. These characteristics include climate, water sources, topography, soil, vegetation, and elevation. Site factors have been used to determine locations for settlements based on that settlement's needs or values. Situation is the location of a place relative to other places. Its relativity to others can show its importance. A region is defined by one or more distinctive characteristics. A region can be larger than a point and smaller than the entire planet. A formal or uniform region is a region in which everyone shares a common characteristic, such as language. This characteristic can be predominant rather than universal in that area. A functional or nodal region is a region focused around one nodal or focal point. A vernacular or perceptual region is a region that people believe exists based on their cultural identity. It is not based on geographic ideas, and an example of this is the American South. Regions of culture. So there are two definitions of culture, and each place on Earth is distinct because of its culture. So culture can be based on what people care about, such as, their values, religion, language, ethnicity. The second element of culture is what people take care of. So people take care of production, such as production of material wealth, food, clothing, shelter, and goods that humans need to survive.
A housing bubble is a rapid increase in the value of houses followed by a sharp decline in their value. When low interest rates made it possible for more people to borrow money, housing prices were raised. Poor people were able to buy houses for the first time even at the risk of not being able to repay the debt. Wealthy people bought multiple homes as an investment to make more money in the future. They thought that if the housing prices kept rising, they would be able to sell the houses at a profit. Low-income families were encouraged by the government to buy houses even at the risk of not repaying the loans. Density is the frequency with which something occurs in space. To find the density, two things have to be measured, which are the feature and the area. For example, the feature could be people and the area could be square kilometers. For 1 square kilometer, there could be 10 people, which is the density of that particular area. Concentration is the extent of a feature spread over space. The objects in an area to define concentration could be how they're spread out. If they're close together, then they're clustered, or if they're far apart, then they're dispersed. Pattern is the geometric arrangement of objects in space. Many objects form a linear distribution, like houses along a street. Many American cities have a pattern that looks like a grid, which has the streets forming right angles. Place to place can vary among gender and ethnicity. The husband's daily routine is to wake up in the morning and go to work, where he'll spend most of his day, and in the evening goes back home. The location of his job is most of the time based off where he lives to make it easier for him to get to work. The wife's daily routine is to wake up and take the kids to school, go grocery shopping, and pick her kids back up from school when it's over. Most American women are employed, but since the location of the job for the husband is based off where the family lives, the wife might have to travel out of town to her job. Movement by ethnicity is very common in some places of the world. There could be an all-white population in one side of a city, and on the other side could be an all-African American population. Some people tend to feel better living near other people of the same ethnicity as them.
Cultural identity and contemporary geography thought. It's important to listen to and to record what different groups have to say about their environment. They are especially consumed with cultural groups that are dominated in space, especially women, ethnic minorities, and gays. It's illegal to discriminate against people of color, although in many places it is still legal to discriminate against gays. and all academic disciplines and workplaces have proclaimed sensitivity of issues of cultural diversity. Connections between places. Some important vocab for this section is connection, which refers to relationships among people and objects across the barrier of space. Geographers are concerned with various means by which connections occur, and rapid connections have reduced the distance across space between places, not in miles, but in time. Relocation diffusion. Some important vocab for this section is hearth, is a place in which an innovation origins. Diffusion is the process by which characteristics spread across space from one place to another over time. And relocation diffusion, the spread of an idea through physical movement of people from one place to another. So how does hearth emerge? Cultural groups must be willing to try something new. To develop a hearth group, people must have the technical ability to achieve an idea of economic structures. Hearths may emerge in two regions because of two cultural groups, mostly a shared concept in two different ways. When people move, they carry their culture, language, religion, and ethnicity with them. Some of the most common languages in America are Spanish, English, French, and Portuguese, because Europeans that spoke those languages were the majority number of migrants. Expansion diffusion. The vocab for this section is expansion diffusion, hierarchical diffusion, contagious diffusion, and stimulus diffusion. Hierarchical diffusion is the spread of ideas from political leaders and other important people in the community. Innovations may also originate in a particular mode or core region, such as hip-hop and rap. They are both examples of interactions that originated in an urban area and later diffused. Contagious diffusion spreads like a wave in a stadium, from one person to hundreds. Stimulus diffusion is when a trend spreads to a new location and changes in its new location. And expansion diffusion happens more rapidly now than in the past because of texting, blogging, twittering, email, and social media. Spatial interaction. The vocab for this section is distance decay, spaceline compression, and network. Connections among groups require physical movement. The further away people are, the less likely they'll interact. Interaction takes place through a network or chain of communication that connects places. Hearth tablets and smart places make it easier for people to communicate long distance. In earlier times, people had to travel to give or receive a message, although now, because of the technology, it helps communicate at a faster rate. Unequal access. The vocab for this section is uneven development. Some people looked at electronics as if being the end of geography because it would remove barriers of interaction. Internet access depends on the availability of electricity. People of lesser income might not have access to the internet. People who lived in private farms are now producing big numbers for core regions or migrated to cities in search for jobs. And now there's an increasing gap in economic conditions, which is known as uneven development, and all workers in the world are being affected by one another's actions.
Key issue 4. Why are some human actions not sustainable? Human actions can affect the Earth's atmosphere, land, water, vegetation, and other living organisms. This also includes the resources that people use to survive. A resource is a substance in the environment that is useful to people. This includes food, water, minerals, plants, and animals. Resources fall under two categories, renewable and non-renewable. A renewable resource is produced faster compared to a non-renewable resource that is produced much slower. Sustainability is the use of Earth's renewable and non-renewable natural resources in ways that ensures resource availability in the future. It is supported by three pillars: environment, economy, and society. The environmental pillar involves two main topics: conservation and preservation. Conservation is the sustainable use and management of Earth's natural resources to meet human needs. Preservation is the maintenance of resources in their present condition with as little human impact as possible. Natural resources acquire monetary value through exchange in a marketplace. In a market economy, supply and demand are major factors, meaning the greater the supply, the lower the price, and the greater the demand, the higher the price. Humans require various things to survive, such as food and shelter. Resources are taken from the environment to meet these needs. However, a consumer's choice can support sustainability. For example, a consumer might prefer recycled material. Some environmental critics argue it is too late to talk about sustainability. The World Wildlife Fund claims the world surpassed the sustainable level in 1980. The four physical systems are classified as either biotic or abiotic. A biotic system is composed of living things, whereas an abiotic system is composed of non-living or inorganic matter. The Earth has four physical systems: the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, the lithosphere, and the biosphere. The atmosphere is a thin layer of gas that surrounds the Earth. Gravity holding the gas creates pressure, and these pressure variations in the air are responsible for weather. The Köppen system was created to separate the world into 5 main climates. All bodies of water located on the Earth's surface are known as the hydrosphere. Bodies of water supply water vapor which return to the Earth as fresh water. This water is essential to all living organisms. The lithosphere is the Earth's crust and a portion of the upper mantle. Powerful forces deep within the Earth bend and break the crust to form mountains, continents, and ocean basins.
The biosphere encompasses all of Earth's living organisms, though living organisms can exist except for connecting through its physical environment. The biosphere includes three abiotic systems that are by the Earth's surface. For example, soil comprises minerals from the lithosphere and its moisture from the hydrosphere and its air from the atmosphere, and the plants and insects came from the biosphere. The lithosphere is where plants and animals live to obtain food and shelter. Hydrosphere provides water for both living life such as human life and aquatic life, and the atmosphere provides air for animals and humans and protect them from the sun's rays. Human geographers are interested in ecosystems that involve connections at humans and the rest of the biosphere. For example, if oxygen levels reduce, humans would have trouble breathing. And without water, humans would waste away and die. The stable lithosphere provides humans with materials for buildings and fuel. The rest of the biosphere provides humans with food. For example, our actions lead to destruction of soil, which is the material on Earth's surface at thin interface between air and rocks. The two basic problems that lead to the destruction of soil is erosion and depletions of nutrients. Human geographers are interested in different cultural groups that modify the natural surroundings in a distinctive way. This is known as cultural ecology. Alexander von Humboldt and Karl Ritter believe that the physical environment caused environmental determinism. Both believe that there should be laws from natural scientists to understand relationships between the physical environment and the human actions. Both argued that the social and natural process are the same. A polar is a piece of land that is created by draining water from an area. They were first created in the 13th century and created by private developers in the 16th and 17th century. Some of the polars are used for housing. One of the ambitious projects that were made in the Netherlands is the Delta Plan. After a flood happened in January 1953 that killed 2,000 people, the Delta Plan was called for the construction of several dams to close off the waterways. After the major projects were done, the views of the Netherlands environment tragically changed. The Dutch made plans to build more polders. To control the flooding in South Florida, the U.S. Army straightened the course of the Kissimmee River, which rendered 160 kilometers. The water was rerouted into a canal. These modifications opened up hundreds of thousands of land that occupied South Florida population from flooding.